and welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and with me is Carla Moore, your other host. And today we're going to have a great conversation about kindred spirits or bosom friends or whatever you want to call it. And I'm thankful, Carla, that you are one of those kindred spirits for me, and look forward to having a conversation with you about that. But before we get to that point, how are you? What have you been up to? I feel like it wasn't all that long ago that we talked because we recorded really late in the week, and now we're kind of recording earlier in the week this week. So have you been thrifting since the last time I talked to you?
I actually did. And
Oh,
I put it close by. I found a
I wasn't expecting you to say that. I know you've been
yeah,
busy.
well, I made a real quick little run over there
Okay.
last week and I found an espresso. It's an espresso machine. If you're watching, you can see it.
It looks like a mailbox.
No, it is a
It looks like a
Nespresso.
projector.
So when you move this little thing, you put the little coffee pod down in there.
Oh,
Nespresso, the
hmm.
Nespresso makers. But this is an especially good one because it's made by Breville or Breville or however you say that word.
Mm-hmm.
And John likes that. It makes espresso more so than coffee. The little
That's
tiny
the
pods.
ones, yeah, the tiny
Mm-hmm.
pods. So y'all are keeping that. You're not selling that one.
Right. Yeah. I had another one, and I find these fairly often. And whenever I see them, I mean, like once a year, maybe I'll find
Mm-hmm.
one, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and buy it because they wear out, and I think, well, I'll hang on to this one. So Mike is going to take the old one home. I think he might use it occasionally, and we'll stick this one in its place. Yeah.
Nice. Good job. Did you get a good
Yeah.
deal?
10.59, not too bad.
Wow. That's
They're
a
like
pretty good deal.
$150. Yeah. So
Magic.
yeah. So what's going on in your garden since we're asking the normal
Oh,
questions?
oh, nothing. It's all, it's
Deadness,
all closed
death,
down.
and
Yeah.
cold.
Death and dying and brownness and
Oh,
no,
but it's that
it's tucked
season.
away. Yeah,
It's
it's
the
tucked
season that's
away.
preparing for next year.
We're covering it up with mulch and leaves and things like that. And I brought my lemon tree in because it can't stay out year round. And it's all of a sudden had this burst of growth, and it has all these new leaves coming in, and it's just bushed out really, really big. It looks way better now than it did all summer when it was
Where'd you put it?
outside. It's by our sliding glass door.
So it's getting sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
Will it produce fruit over the winter?
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't done anything yet. The very first year that we had it, we had a couple of small lemons on there that never really matured to full size.
Mm.
And then this summer, nothing happened. No blossoms, no fruit. And then as soon as I brought it, it just looks very happy. So I'm wondering if I should keep it in year round.
It wanted to be an indoor pet, not an
It wants
outdoor
to
pet.
be a pet. Probably because it's right here in front of me. And so I'm giving it more attention
Mm-hmm.
than when it's outside, and maybe I don't see it as much, but
Yeah. I thought
mm-hmm.
about you yesterday. I was outside. This is my exercise, going outside and trimming cedar. But we're trying to leave some of the cedar kind of as a barrier between the road and the house, but yet take most of the dead stuff. It's a huge cedar tree that broke. One of the branches broke during the freeze
Oh,
last
mm-hmm.
year.
Mm-hmm.
That was just this February. I need to take a picture of it because I mean the branch is probably, I don't know, 10 inches in diameter. And it just, it extends way almost to the road, and it broke. So, the branch broke and part of it stuck to the tree and the rest of it is resting on the ground.
Okay.
But so much of the growth around it is dead. And I'm trying to cut away those dead branches and just drag them out of the way so that we can clear out the dead stuff. But I just thought about you because you've tried to teach me how to prune, like the basil. You pinch this little piece back, and I feel like I'm doing that on a grand scale out there with those cedar trees, trying to shape them excuse me, trying to shape them so that they'll look nice and to get rid of the dead undergrowth. But it's a big job, but
So
it's
do
a
you have
good.
burn piles? Are you burning all the dead brush and stuff?
We have, and we've had some rain, so we've been able to do that. That's one of the things we couldn't do this summer because it was so
Mm-hmm.
dry.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had some rain. It's cloudy and drizzly right now, so
Mm-hmm.
probably drag some more to that burn pile, and maybe this in a day or two we'll burn some more.
I bet that is good exercise.
It is. And it
sounds like hard work.
You've got to find stuff, this. You find things that you like to do and enjoy doing, and it doesn't feel like you're exercising. And so I get out there with my hatchet and hatch away. Maybe that's not the right word. If you don't hatch with a hatchet, what do you do?
I think you hatch with a hatchet. Never mind. Speaking of exercise, okay. I did yoga yesterday for the first time in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me. It amazes me how much limberness you can lose in no time at all. I chose a very basic one, nothing to, it was like an overall stretch all parts of your body, morning yoga kind of a thing. Things that are normally pretty basic. I could feel myself kind of going, oh.
You were not being Sophia Loren, were you?
I was not being Sophia Loren. And at the end of the day, I was feeling it in the back of, my legs. And I thought that really wasn't even a challenging one. So
were you doing a video?
Yes. Just a YouTube video. I just set up my mat and sometimes a diffuser and get some water. But like I said, it's been a while and I'm trying to get back on track, especially going into winter.
Yeah.
And I just could not believe it. I thought these are the easy moves. I feel like I'm a tight. I need to be warmed up and stretched out.
No, I am not limber. John he can like put his nose to his knees, and sometimes he can put his hands flat on the floor. I don't know if he can do that right now, but a lot of times, my girls laugh at him because he likes to stretch a lot, and he'll get down on the ground and pull his knees up to his chest and rock.
I think we saw him do that when we were out of the country together.
He's done it on an airplane before. And I, as soon as he starts, I try to get my phone out and take a picture because I know the kids will laugh and because he'll do it wherever. But
I don't know where we were. I don't know if we were in Rome, but he said, y'all keep moving, y'all keep going, go, go, go. And of course we all stopped and turned around to see why. And he just got over there on the ground. This little stretchy thing.
And then gets up and has grass all over his back. I was
thinking, is he okay? Should we be concerned?
Yeah.
Is he trying to keep it cool, but something's going on?
Nope. Absolutely normal. We're used to that with him.
Well, speaking of our trip, I've been meaning to share this with everybody and finally remembered today, but I wanted to share this gift that you got me while we were out of the country together. And for those of you who can't see, it is a colored pencil holder, but it's leather. Oops, one just fell out. Let me turn it this way. For those of you who can see, it rolls up and holds all of your colored pencils, and it smells amazing because I love the smell of leather. But I saw one of these. We were in Florence, right?
I think so.
When I first saw one, we went into a little leather shop and fell in love with it and walked away from it. And then I can't remember where you actually found this one.
It's in Rome, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I hope we don't sound so snooty. No, we were in Florence. No, we were in Rome.
When are we just, no big deal traveling around the world together. But you surprised me with this thing and I love it. And I can't remember if I told you in person or not, or just thought it in my head. But it reminds me of, have you ever seen that movie, The Mummy, with Brendan Fraser? I love that movie because he's very chivalrous. Like he goes to her rescue, and I'm a sucker for chivalry. But at one point in the movie, he surprises the main character with something similar to this, but it's like archaeology tools, for her to dust off things or chisel things that she finds. And she opens it up and it looks just like that, like this leather thing that you unroll and there's all your tools. Well, every single time I open this, that's how I feel.
Do you open it with a flourish? Like
I do. I open it up. It's like the archaeologist of the Bible, So let's just segue right into scripture writing since the book is ready for people to order. Find you one of these really cool leather things that you can unroll with a flourish as you dig into the word, right?
And your pencils will go flying and you'll have to get down on the floor and pick them up.
Yeah, well,
yep.
that won't happen to other people. That stuff like that
should put you a little pick and a little little brush and other things in there that you can go dig in the yard with.
That's just not near as exciting.
Mm-mm.
Now, Dale would say it's exciting because he does a lot of metal detecting. So anybody that's on an older property that he can get permission from, he is as happy as a clam spending the whole day out there digging in the dirt. And he has found some really cool things.
Well, he's got it taken that from his dad, huh? I know
Mm-hmm.
that Neil would go with Ken Young and
Yeah.
or was it
Dave Young.
Dave
Or,
Young?
no. Neither one of those. Dave Young's son.
Dave's son. Ken is not the one that I'm thinking of,
No,
but
he's the other.
Dave Jr.
Yeah, Dave Jr.
Yeah.
Yes. They would go spend all day coming back with Civil War relics and
We've
pretty
heard
cool
stories
stuff.
about that. That would be fun. I think that I would enjoy that with, what did you call it, a metal detector.
It's pretty exciting. For some holiday recently, I got the boys one that's for underwater. It's sort of metal detecting underwater, and there are these heavy, really high powered magnets. It's almost like fishing for underwater treasures that you can throw out there and pull in things. And of course, a lot of it's going to be junk, but you can also find some pretty fun things.
How deep does it go?
Several feet. I don't remember exactly.
That sounds like fun. Treasure hunting in the
Treasure
modern
hunting.
age.
Treasure hunting of all sorts is fun, right?
Yeah. My brother gave Jackson a box full of treasures last week at Thanksgiving. And Doug, my brother, he has a knack for finding things like that. You know, he has shadow boxes that have neat little things that he's found here or there. And he has a garage full of tools and things. So he's just got, and I don't want to call them knickknacks because that's what they're not necessarily decorative, but Jackson was so excited and came out of Doug's office with this, just an old cigar box full of magnets and trying to think what else is in there. An old shark tooth and I don't know, maybe a football card or two and some caps, like for a cap gun. And, it was just like this treasure box.
The perfect boy treasure box.
Yes. But it was funny too, because it had these really strong magnets in it, the kind that he had them one underneath the bottom of the table and then another sitting on top of the table. And then he was moving the one on the top of the table by moving the bottom magnet. So they're really strong, was going through like 2 inches of table.
Right.
And we had to remind him, Aaron remembered this, not to get those magnets too close to Pa, because you can't get magnets too close to his defibrillator. And I don't know how, that's not something I really want to test. And I'm sure John doesn't want to either.
No.
Like how strong is too strong. But, but anyway, anytime John would get close, he would kind of pull that magnet away from him and not let him get too close to him. Excuse me, this cough is hanging around.
Speaking of, this is an anniversary date of that event. 3 years ago today.
Yeah, Micah came over a little while ago. He brought Livy and came for a while, and I hadn't really thought all that much about it this morning. In fact, I thought about it last night, but I didn't think about it this morning. And then started getting some messages from the kids that were just really sweet, and I was thinking, wow, they're just being so sweet. And then it dawned on me that they remember this is the 3rd anniversary. Yeah. And Micah said a couple of things like, well, 3 years ago right now, had we moved from the waiting room to the lobby yet? He's just thinking about things like that. And he said, not that I want to relive that, but and yeah, think about John is out running errands today. He's having lunch with a friend and went to a Toyota dealership in San Marcos, and I'm not thinking anything of it. And one of the things that I remember during that time when he was still recovering was how we take for granted just an ordinary day, and how much we want those when we don't have them. And today is just an ordinary day. And 3 years ago, I surely didn't know if I was going to have any more ordinary days. So very, very grateful and thankful for that.
I am too. And maybe for those who are listening in for the first time, if you want to tell them what happened 3 years ago today.
Well, he was sitting in Bible class here in Dripping Springs. He had just made a comment, like literally seconds before this happened, and his heart stopped. And someone, I wasn't sitting with him, I was sitting with my mom, but someone said his name really loud. It's something that was unusual, kind of made me turn my head and look back, and he was not conscious. And so they performed CPR on him. Several people from church performed CPR, and then the EMS got there. They also shocked him with a defibrillator, and then took him to the hospital and put him in kind of a sedated coma thing for several days, and just kind of giving his body time to rest. And then he woke up, and he still, he had every bit. Sometimes I think he doesn't remember names as well as he used to, but he was already kind of not great at that to begin with. But just the fact that that he survived, for one thing, because the odds of anyone surviving an incident like that away from the hospital is like 3%, if that. And the fact that he maintained his brain function and is basically the same person as he was before, even without they started on the CPR fairly quickly. But anyway, it was a heart arrhythmia, and we still don't know exactly why it happened, if it's a genetic thing or if it was just a fluke. But then it happened, they put the defibrillator in pretty quickly, like 9 days later, I guess. But then his heart stopped again about 15 months later. So there's something in his heart that is causing that to happen. So now he's on a medication and the defibrillator, and hasn't had any problems since then. So yeah, that was 3 years ago today. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it multiple times a day. But I don't like, my day doesn't revolve around that. It did for a while. Every little move, every little strange look that he would have, anything that was different, it put me on edge. But not anymore. I'm just it's just an ordinary day again, and I do thank God for ordinary days.
And both of you have been back to leading tours around the world and to Israel, and remarkable things.
Well, you just don't want to stop living, because something can happen anywhere you are. You just got to keep going, don't you?
Yep. Very true.
Anyway,
right.
We're grateful.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. Very thankful. I was thinking that showed up in my memories first thing this morning, and I'm just thankful that he is doing as good as he is, and grateful for both of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we should probably go ahead and start chatting, because I know we both have a busy afternoon and evening ahead of us. Yeah. You know what I mean about the real topic.
Do we have one?
Kind of, sort of. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about kindred spirits, and the reason is because we have a local Christian school here called FCA, and every now and then they break up their chapel into small group chapel. And this morning I had an opportunity to be with the 7th grade girls in their small group chapel, and we talked about this today with them, and it was so funny to me because I was trying to get them to think about their relationships with other people, and at one point I said something about, I forget how I worded it, but I was basically asking the question about, do you think it's hard to form those really close relationships that you feel like somebody knows you and you know them and you can share your soul with them? And almost everybody in the room agreed that they thought that could be hard, that just to find that person. And then there was this one lady in the back, and she was like, no, that's easy.
She makes friends easy.
Oh yeah. I could tell from her personality right off the bat, with how the whole thing unfolded and all the questions, that she was that person that doesn't know a stranger. But when I asked in the beginning, have any of you ever heard the term kindred spirits? Every single one of them said no.
Really?
So then I said, have you heard of Anne of Green Gables? And they said no.
Wow.
So I was like, well, scrap this lesson. Now I don't know where to go. But the very first time I heard it was from Anne of Green Gables, and she talks about her bosom friends in the book. And then I wrote down some of the things that she said. A bosom friend, a really kindred spirit to whom I can confide my inmost soul. And I think, especially as women, most of us cherish that, or the idea of that, and having someone that we can talk to. If we're married, hopefully that best friend and that person is our husband. But we also cherish women friends, and I believe we did an episode, I forget what we called it, nurturing friendships or something like that, where we talked about a little bit of this. But she goes on to say, I love this part. It's splendid to find out there are so many of them in the world. And, I don't know that we feel that way all the time, that there's all these people walking around that are our kindred spirits and we can confide our soul in them. But I started thinking about that in light of, how God designed us and what he had in mind for us, in light of maybe where we are as a nation and in society right now, and how those just seem to be so far apart from each other. And, we've talked before on here about isolation and disconnect, and, maybe social media has even encouraged some of that. I don't know. But certainly the pandemic, has made some people more comfortable with that. And, where has that led us with all the jokes and the memes and the trendiness of not liking people, all the memes or sweatshirts that say, don't make me people.
Yeah.
I can't people today, all those kinds of things. But when you look at what God had in mind for his people, it really was this idea of close fellowship and relationship. And I even noticed that in the Old King James Version, the word kindred is used. Some of the newer translations would use a word like brother or tribe or family in the instances where it's used. But just to see that word, in the King James was special. But I started thinking about how when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest command? And he gives the answer of love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. And he said, on this hang all the law and the prophets. So the whole sum total of everything is your relationship with God and your relationship with other people. And it's all about relationship. And so I just thought it might be fun to kind of talk about that a little bit, and just how maybe we need to make more space in our lives for creating, pursuing, seeking kindred spirit type relationships, not just friendships, but close friendships, close fellowship, developing those types of relationships where you can share your soul with someone.
Do you think some of the reason we don't is because we've been burned sometimes, which is a shame, because that excuse me, it's a shame that it happens to begin with, but then it's a shame that it leads us to kind of putting those walls and those guards up and being afraid to share something because it might be used against us later, or it might be gossiped about, or somebody might spill the beans on something. That there's things that you really need to unburden yourself about, but you don't feel comfortable doing that with just everyone, because maybe it's happened before and someone has taken advantage of that with you. But I don't know. I think that I wonder this too, when you were talking about making room for not just friendship, but close friendship, makes me think about how my parents' generation, when they dated all kinds of people. My mom would go out with, she might be horrified if I say this, because back then it was normal, not so much now. You go out with one guy on Monday night and a different guy on Thursday night and somebody else on Saturday night. Not like we do now. It seems like now we start talking to some, a young woman starts talking to some young man, and then before long it's just them. And you don't go out. And I feel like years ago it was friendship. You had friends, different guy friends. and it's just different now. And I wonder if that has carried over into friendship, how we have our own little tribe and we don't, it might not just be one person, might be two or three, but we don't really want to get outside of our own little tribe. And I love having close friends because you have history and you have memories and you have inside jokes and you just know that you're understood. And it takes a while to get to that point. You can't just make a friend and the next week have those things that that you do with a longtime friend. But we shouldn't be closed off to the idea or just automatically say, sorry, got my tribe, don't need more people. Or the squad, as Hiram would say.
The squad.
The squad.
Well, friendship does go wrong sometimes, or maybe we're just dissatisfied with some of our friendships because they seem a little shallow, or we haven't found people that, excuse me, bring out the best in us, but I think you're right. Don't give up on friendship because of bad experiences in the past. And I think that's also a biblical principle, because think of all the love one another or just one another passages in the Bible. And when I was looking that up, 100 times in the New Testament, we have that one another phrase. And 59 of those times have to do with how we're to treat one another. Most of them are positive, love one another by itself is 16 times, but honor, encourage, uphold, build up, all these things, this. And so that to me sounds like it's a very active, it's something that we're supposed to be intentional about and something we're supposed to pursue. And if we are doing those things, it seems to me like building those closer relationships would be a natural outgrowth of that. And if we have been hurt or let down or burned in the past, it doesn't mean that we stop doing all of those things for one another. I read an article several years ago. I don't even remember where or who wrote it or if it was even religious or secular. I think it was probably secular, but it was talking about how people don't even try to get close to other people anymore. And the reason they gave was because we move around so much. And we never move somewhere intending to stay there, is what this article said, that we're very transient, and even with a house situation, it says that people don't try to get close to their neighbors anymore because they don't intend on this being their forever home. They're only going to be in this home for a few years until they can find a better one somewhere else. And so why would they invest in getting to know their neighbors and forming a relationship with their neighbors? And, maybe there's a little bit of that in the back of our mind. I don't even know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know how long I'm going to be with this church family. I don't know how long my husband will have this job before we get transferred, or, maybe that's a part of it. Also, I don't know what it seems like. I'm sure it's a multifaceted and not a simple answer, but think of all the benefits of that. Somebody knowing you, the real you, warts and all. That's what I love about my friendship with you and a handful of other people, that they've seen the not so great side of me and are still my friend, or I feel at ease with you. I don't feel like I have to consider every word that I'm saying because I'm afraid of what you'll take it and do with it. I feel like I can be comfortable and be myself with you. And that's the beauty of a kindred spirit. And when I was talking to the girls, I asked them if they'd ever had a compliment from somebody they didn't know. Like, have you ever held open the door for somebody at the mall, and then when they're walking by, they say, "Oh, cute shoes," or "Oh, I love your hair," or something like that. Chances are it's a pretty shallow compliment because they don't know you. All they're doing is seeing something and saying something nice. Yes, it would have made you feel good and probably smile the rest of the day every time you thought about it, but it didn't really mean anything. But if it's somebody that knows you, like really knows you, and they say something encouraging to you or something complimentary or uplifting, that's the kind of stuff that just fills your soul. Just means you take it to heart and it means something to you because they know you. And that's just one of those beauties I think that God had in mind for this ability that we have to develop close friendships, kindred spirits, and um, walking through life together, experiencing things together. And then when the encouragement comes, it really means something, you know. And on the other side of that, when correction comes, it means something. You know, you need those friends to remind you when you get off a little bit with how you're seeing things or you forget God's goodness. You need those close friends to be the ones to come up to you and say, don't forget, you know, God's always been with you and he always will be with you.
And sometimes I think the best friends, the ones that I have, they don't even have to say anything corrective. Mm-hmm. If I think about saying something, like, for example, if I thought about saying something to you that wasn't maybe something that I shouldn't say, or a way that I shouldn't think, or you know, just maybe something that's not productive. If I thought about saying it to you, then I would think, oh, I probably, you know, she wouldn't think that way, or trying to figure out how to say this. It's like, you correct me without correcting me. Does that make sense? I don't mean that in a bad way at all, because it's almost
Is it
like
my face or
no. I guess it could be when
what are
you get
you
that,
saying, Carla?
like, what in the world?
What?
Yeah. But no, when you know the convictions of someone, and you know what they stand for, what they believe in, and what you are thinking, the way that you're thinking about something doesn't fall in line with that, then I'm not going to say it. And it makes, not just that I'm not going to say it, I'm going to think, why wouldn't I say it? So in that sense, I think we can be corrective without having to even say anything. And I think that's the iron sharpening iron.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the when two, you know, there may be some clashes, and we've had some, not a whole lot, but when you're close to someone, you can't help it. But those clashes make you a better person, because they're sharpening, and they're sharpening. They just make you a better person, because you know that they live for God and they want to do what's right. And I mean, you know that they're not perfect and they have their own issues and stuff, but that's kind of one of the things that I love about kindred spirits and close friendships, is that we do know warts and all, which makes me feel like it's okay that I have warts. Mm-hmm. And that, because you have warts too.
We all have warts, Carla.
We all have warts. Warts is one of those gross words.
It's a gross word.
Let's just say wart again. But, you know, when you know someone that is, you know what they stand for, you know that they genuinely love God, you know that they genuinely want their life to count for God, to reflect his glory, and they mess up. To me, that doesn't it doesn't knock the rug out from under me and holding you on this pedestal. It just means that your feet are on the ground like mine are. So that's encouraging to me, I think, just knowing that we all have our issues, and that we can correct one another even without having to correct one another. Mm. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. And like you said earlier, that's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Right.
You know, and maybe if there are times when we don't feel like we have that kind of relationship, that's okay. Be patient, pray about it. That's something that develops with time and shared history together and serving together. And I remember when we moved here, I probably said this on here already, but when we moved to Kentucky from Colorado, I was a little bit sad just because this was the first place we moved without having our kids at home. And I was afraid that I'd be leaving such an essential part of myself out, you know, that none of these people here knew any of my memories with my children, saw any of their upbringing. So how would they ever get to know me, the real, you know, how I would miss that because I didn't have any of that with anybody. It was really kind of weighing on me. And it's amazing how I should have known this and not been so short-sighted. it just doesn't take long at all, especially in God's family, to feel like family. And they all, I mean, most of them immediately they were asking about our children, but more than even aside from our kids and that part of our life, we automatically started building relationships and creating new memories. When you experience things together in people's lives, when you serve together, when you fall together in various ways, you form those relationships just being with people. And
Mhm.
we've only been here for a little over 4 years, and I feel like we have such dear members in this family that we love like family. And what a blessing that is. And in what other arena really is it like that than with God's family?
And
You were talking, go
you
ahead.
also, well, you realize that your identity is not just as a mother.
Yes.
And when you left Denver, that was kind of the end of your
Mm-hmm.
mothering in a sense, of having your kids at home. And so that had been who you were for however many years, however old
Mm-hmm.
Gary was. But your identity, of course, is wrapped up in Christ, but your identity as a mother
Mm-hmm.
had sort of run its course. It's a whole new one as the mother of adult children, which we both know at this point in our lives, which is a great thing. But now these new people in Bowling Green knew your identity as Kathy. When you're Neil's wife, you're just Kathy. And so I think that opens the door for people to know us in a whole different way.
Mm-hmm.
And not that those things, obviously very important things about you that the last 30 years of your life, but I don't know. It's something you said about that you're not going to be here. You don't know how long you're going to be here. I don't think that has ever factored into me making the relationship. Has it with you?
No,
I don't think so.
it did make sense to me about the neighbors,
Yeah.
especially with, real estate the way it is and people. It is true. Most people don't stay in one house for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that part made sense to me. But even with at Bear Valley there, the students coming and going,
Yeah.
some of the members said it can be hard knowing that they're only going to be here for a couple of years to put your heart into it, but they do it anyway
Mm-hmm.
because they're part of the family and they bring those students in and treat them like part of the family. They don't keep them at arm's length because, oh, you're only going to be here for 2 years. I don't want to get to know you and then have to miss you.
Yeah. Yeah. That I just never have had that. Maybe because we have been involved in that kind of work for so many
Mm-hmm.
years, but
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like when you have one child and the next one arrives, do you withhold part of you? I know I felt this. I know Jake and Liz felt this just a few weeks ago. They had Turner and she was their only child, and knowing that Darcy was coming, and how can you possibly love another
Yes,
child like you love this child?
exactly.
And then God makes it happen. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel that same way about friendship, that how can we possibly open up your heart for someone who's only going to be here for 2 years? But God makes it happen, because when they leave, they're not, it's not like they're gone. They're just, you find a different way to stay in touch, and it changes and morphs, and then new people come in. And so I think we just have to open up our minds and hearts to the knowledge that God's going to take care of this like he does everything else.
And really, that's the perfect phrase for all of the challenges that you might face if you have been burnt in a friendship in a big way and or hurt in a relationship. How can I open up my heart again? It's too raw. How can I love again? Whatever. God makes it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you just have to trust that and put yourself out there. Of course, you might be hurt or disappointed, but you're going to hurt and disappoint other people too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to, but we're human. Things are going to happen sometimes. But the beauty of that is if Christ is our foundation in that relationship, then even those conflicts, disagreements, personality differences, or whatever, at the core of it all, we're united in Christ and we can trust each other. We're to keep following Jesus, keep that as the base of that relationship, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
What part, here's a question for you. What part does jealousy play in relationships?
I think jealousy, I hate that's such a big struggle, but
Yeah.
jealousy and envy, I think work closely together because if you're jealous of a situation or something, a perceived relationship that maybe somebody has with somebody else, um, isn't there sort of a part of envy to that is robbing you of just being grateful for what you have,
Yeah.
or some conception or idea that you're missing out on something is, it seems like envy is at the root of that. And all I know is that when you go through and read all the verses about jealousy, it paints it out as this ugly monster, and seems like there's even one verse about it that says, who can stand against it? It's just, it destroys everything. It tears
Mm-hmm.
down everything. And it's so easy for it to take root in our hearts. And once it does, doesn't it just affect your thoughts and your emotions towards somebody and the mentality that you have toward that person? And it does no good whatsoever. You have to root it up and get rid of it.
Yeah.
If you're talking about your relationship with your husband or your friends or whoever it
Mm-hmm.
might be, it does no good.
Well, I'm just thinking of, it's something I think we all struggle with beginning early in childhood. When you hear someone say, I won't be your best friend, and, just that childishness. But I thought that would be over with by adulthood. And it wasn't, it stretches on into adulthood when you hear, so and so went with so and so and you weren't invited, or just the fact that they're doing things together and you think, well, I thought we were best friends. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like we can only have one best friend. And
Mm-hmm.
then, there are some people like that. They just have bosom friends from the time they're 5 years old until they die. And mine have morphed and changed, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are still there. And it just depends on what season of life you're in or what region of the country you're in, or, depends on a lot of things. But I just think jealousy, like you said, it just ruins so many things. And if we figure out a way to just let go of it and just to, what, if you go do something with somebody else, good for you. You have other friends. And I'm happy that you are able to do these things. And there are times that I think, oh, I wish I could be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I've really tried to make it more like, man, I wish I would love to have been there. But at the same time, I'm just excited that you get to do things with whoever. But it really can, it takes root. And if we start assigning motives, or, you go do something with somebody and I think, well, I guess she doesn't like me anymore, doesn't want to do anything with me anymore. I guess they're probably talking about me. And, it's a mind game, and it just can
Mm-hmm.
spiral out of control. And that's when we can lock ourselves in our house and not want to go anywhere and do anything with anybody. And we feel like we've been betrayed, and we haven't. It's just all
Mm-hmm.
this silly thing that's going on in our mind, when if we would just be happy for people that they have friends, just be happy for people. And I think in some ways, I may be rambling on, but this is where I find my most comfort, that John is my best friend. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I know you feel this way about Neil too, because we are one. And I can be jealous of him because he's mine.
That's right.
I'm not sharing him with anybody else. I
Mm-hmm.
refuse, and I don't have to. He's mine. But I know he's always going to be there, and I'm confident in our relationship. And I know he feels the same way about me. He tells me all the time, you're my best friend. And so in a way, having that comfort in that relationship allows me to have comfort in all my other relationships, because I really only need him. It may sound really, I don't know how that sounds. I don't really care how it
Oh,
sounds. I
and
only
I
really
think
need him.
everybody listening knows exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure we've all experienced that, almost a FOMO, or that, feeling left
Mm-hmm.
out of things. And I've struggled with that too, of course. But as you were saying, be happy for them, or as the Bible puts it, rejoice with those who
Mhm.
rejoice. It makes me think of with my own sons, they're all adults now, and I want them to have as many Christian friends as possible. I want them to have all the good kindred spirits. I don't know that
Mhm.
boys would say that, but get connect, if Jonathan's soul could be knit to David's, then I
Yeah.
want them to have all of that because I know they'll draw strength from that, as we read in Ecclesiastes, two are better than one. And I want that for them so badly. Whatever it takes for them to be held up through whatever they face in life, that's what I want for them. And that's because I love them with everything that I am and I want what's best for them. And I think if we have that mentality toward all of our friends and our girlfriends, I want what's best for them. That means I'm going to rejoice when they have not just my relationship,
Mhm.
but other Christian relationships, other friends that they can be with and spend time with. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that there are times when people thoughtlessly leave people out, and that's a different topic. It does
Right.
happen and people get their feelings hurt. But you're talking about when we are the ones that kind of can wrestle with that petty
Mhm.
jealousy,
Mhm.
and instead, if we kind of shift gears a little bit and rejoice with them and want the best for them, it's amazing what that does for our own heart and how it opens our eyes to all the ways that we ourselves are blessed and can look at that with gratitude. In one of her books, Sally Clarkson has a paragraph on forming women relationships when you travel a lot. Um, like she's actually lived in different countries.
Mhm.
But she shares this story in one of them about how when she was a young teenager, she went to spend the night with a friend of hers who lived near a pasture. And they had decided that they were going to get up early and watch the sunrise the next morning. And so they got up early, they got like a thermos of coffee and a blanket, and they went out to the pasture and they found a good spot. And, they're drinking coffee. It's a little bit chilly, and then they watched the sun come up. And she said it was just beautiful, just glorious, golden, beautiful. And she said something about just seeing that beauty made us want to talk about beautiful things,
Mhm.
and things that are true. And she said they ended up just talking for the longest time about their life and what they thought it might look like when they grew up and their, and all this other stuff. But she said that if she had watched that sunrise by herself, it would have been every bit as beautiful, but it wouldn't have been as meaningful.
Mhm.
And that having somebody there to experience that with her is what lodged it into her heart as a significant moment in her life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what God has in mind. I've given you all this beauty. It's not meant for you to enjoy it alone. I've given you a koinonia fellowship and brothers, blood bought brothers and sisters so that it's all meaningful
Mhm.
and that we can remind each other of all of God's goodness and beauty at times when we can't see it, and that we can encourage each other when we need it. And so I think the whole point of this is um, maybe there are times when we get lazy in our relationships and pursuing real genuine friendships, because it does take time and effort and commitment and not being afraid to be yourself. If you're a little bit of an introvert, maybe it's a little bit more daunting.
Mhm.
It does take some effort, but the reward for that, and it probably won't always go perfectly. Or maybe we have it in our mind that today I'm going to find a kindred spirit and she's going to look like me and like what I like and have the same background as me and like all the same, you're not going to find that person
Yeah.
because we're all different. Um, but praying about it and practicing the golden rule and investing in friendships, that is going to create kindred spirit relationships. And, maybe friendship's cool as things in our lives change or distance comes between us or whatever, but it'll always be there. Um, and it'll last through an eternity. So it's always worthwhile to invest in things that last forever. And I
Right.
think
And
that, real friendships are one of those things.
Yeah. And sorry, back to the jealousy thing, just kind of made me think of what you're talking about. When we don't show that, and when we've worked internally on our hearts, our minds to fight that, then I think that people are much more likely to be drawn to us and want to be friends with us, because it's kind of like pouting. Who wants to be around someone that's pouting? Who wants to hang out with someone who's jealous? And what is it about jealousy that makes you attractive, that makes somebody go, oh, well, I really want to be around that person? Man, I miss them. No, it has the opposite effect. So when we put all of those things into practice in our lives, I think it makes us more, for lack of a better word, attractive. And
yes.
when we put off these, I'm happy for you, that's the need, I'm just so glad that you got to do that, I'm happy for you, rather than, well, I hope you had fun, but I wish I'd been there. Even if we don't say it, we put off those vibes sometimes. So just getting rid of those, the jealousy and the envy and the anger and all those things, which are really just not going to help friendship anyway. But I was curious too, just the phrase or the word kindred, and I didn't look it up, but it makes me think, it's like when you found a kindred spirit, you've found someone who sort of thinks like you. Isn't that kind of what you think of with kindred? Is that what your definition of, or what do you think of?
I think officially it has to do with somebody who has the same mindset or opinions, on things like that. But I'm really just thinking of the Anne of Green Gables version of it, that somebody that you feel you're close enough to that you can bare your soul to them, and whatever that looks like. And I think that sometimes when we have somebody that doesn't think like we do, and I'm not talking about faith matters, but say their personality is so different from ours, their upbringing is so, they like, I love the country. Well, if I have this friend that is a city girl through and through, those kinds of things can be so life enhancing too, and expose us to wonderful things and enrich our lives and cause us to grow and all those kinds of things. But I wanted to get back to what you were just saying. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know how sometimes, maybe we've done this ourselves, but somebody will say, nobody ever talks to me. Nobody ever includes me. Nobody ever. And then it becomes almost awkward because now you're in that position of, wanting to make sure that you include them, but it's almost obligatory at that point. And then everybody knows
you
it.
Can't win.
And even the person that complained about it in the first place, well, now you're just doing it because I said something. It's like you say, it's not attractive. It's just a lose-lose situation. And that whole pity party mindset. And I'm not trying to say that never happens. I think some people can be overlooked. We talked about that in a recent episode. But if you're the person that's always complaining about feeling left out, feeling overlooked or neglected, maybe you should just try more focusing on those one another verses. There's a lot of them. And pick one for the week. And today I'm going to practice this with the people around me, with the people in my church family, or whatever it might be. Shift your focus a little bit and see what God does with that.
Always away from self and to others. That's one of the things that at Bear Valley, they do cut corner. And I know that lots of congregations do this. And I'm trying to remember if this is, Corey Waddell goes through, one of the things he asked them to repeat, what is a successful life? And I'm not sure if I'm mixing up two different things, but I think it's to love God and love others. And there's nothing in there about self, but one of the great things about what God does is that when we do love God and love others, that others will love us and want to be around us and want to be friends with us. And it just enhances our life. It's just never fails to amaze me that when we do things God's way, even when we think, I don't know why I would want to do it that way, but we do things God's way and it turns around and God just pours the blessings. And that's kind of what we were talking about with when you don't really want to open your heart up to someone who you don't know is going to be around. Well, that just makes you closed up and makes you sort of this tough nut to crack. And that's living the way that we think we should, protecting our heart, but it only ends up making us hurt worse. When if we would be the kind of person to love God and love others regardless of what you get back in return, then that's when all of the blessings come, and we can just relax and let God work.
Absolutely. And really the only place that self has in the whole picture is when you ask yourself, am I doing my part?
Yeah.
Am I taking all these steps to cultivate the relationship? And on the negative side of that, I don't want to be guilty of being toxic in any relationship, of making it harder for that person to be who they're supposed to be. Um, and I think about some things that I wrestle with, like complaining. Complaining is contagious.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that friend that gets in the habit of complaining all the time. Sometimes I think about the conversations we have before we hit record, and I'm like, oh, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Let's talk about looking up. But when you're looking for those kindred spirits, they're going to be people that bring out the best in you and make it easier for you to go to heaven. If you're hanging out with somebody who's always bashing their husband, that's you can love everybody and be kind to everybody, but that doesn't mean you necessarily need to be close to everybody. Um, and so I need to look and make sure that I'm not that way for somebody, that I'm not making it harder for them not to gossip, making it harder for them to not complain or talk bad about their husband, or fill in the blank, whatever it might be. So I think that's the only place for self, is when we're doing a little bit of introspection of, am I doing my part positively to love and build up and uphold, or am I making sure that I'm not bringing any toxic traits to this friendship?
Well, that brings up something else too interesting, that old saying that birds of a feather flock together. So kindred spirits in one way, we want a kindred spirit, but are we being a kindred spirit? And if you find, what are you looking for in a friend? And if you kind of look at your circle of your closest people, and what you know about them is that they tend to be bitter or complain or talk about others in a negative way, or if you're hanging around people like that, if the ones that you're around the most, that you put yourself around the most, are that way, I think that's a pretty good indicator that you probably are too. Don't you think?
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe that's something that we need to think long and hard about.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote I share every now and then. I'm probably going to butcher it because I can't remember how exactly it goes, but you're not supposed to ask, why are they such a gossip, but why are they so comfortable gossiping around me?
Yeah. And that another saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Oh, yeah.
I think that applies here too, because, the people that you choose to surround yourself with are going to affect your future, and in a good way or a bad way. So
surround yourself with soul winners. Surround yourself with people who love to learn new things and study the word. Surround yourself with people that are compassionate and kind to other people, that are humble. They're all around us. I'm
but
grateful
be
for
that
all the
way
ones.
too.
Yes, be that way. I'm grateful for all the ones in my life, including you.
Well, I feel the same way about you, but I think too that it doesn't preclude that we can't be real with one another. And you say, like what we talked about before we hit record, some of those things we have to bounce off of each other, because and I think that's what I'm saying about being corrective without correcting, is that sometimes when you are able to process out loud with someone, knowing who you're talking to, knowing what they're gonna, if they could, I guess I could ask myself sometimes, what would she tell me? How would she advise me in this? And I already know what you would tell me most of the time. And it's usually what, something that I know I would need to hear. So when I'm processing out loud, or if I'm just saying, well, this happened, and maybe you'll say, well, maybe you're seeing that a little bit differently than they intended, something like that. So I guess what I'm saying by that is that we have to have people that we can, I don't know if vent is the right word, because I tend to think of venting as being just complaining, but someone that you can say, this is how I felt. Am I wrong in feeling this way? Or this is how I felt. I know it was dumb and I felt bad about it, and laugh about it. I think we can do that.
Well, and I think the difference is healthy venting is going to have closure and be pointing in the right direction on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And I think about, we're always texting, and sometimes you'll put those little statements, if we've been talking about something, well, we just remember why we do this, or it's all to God's glory, or something like that. It's not preachy. I'm making it sound preachy. It's not, but every now and then, if an issue arises and we're talking about it, it's just those gentle statements of, let's get our head straight and remember why we're doing this, or whatever. It's that whole, we've talked about this, but let's remember what everything's all about, and to me, that's the difference, is somebody to say, that grace and that gentleness to listen and hear you out. But at the same time, that, with the hug is the whole, okay, you've had your say. Now
get over it.
Get back on track and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap this up, I kind of wanted to, I wrote down this verse from Acts 2, as soon as I can find it.
We're going to know what to do when we wrap things up before 2 hours long.
What? So Acts 2, verses 46 and 47, of course, talking about the very first Christians and how they related to each other. But I want you to just listen for some words that are beautiful in any friendship, close friendship. Day by day, continuing with one mind in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they were taking their meals together with gladness and sincerity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people.
I heard bread and meals. I like those.
And this is why we're friends.
What kind of bread do you think? Usual, sourdough?
Gotcha. Okay.
Sorry, I ruined that for you.
No, from house to house, together, gladness, sincerity of heart. These are the types of characteristics that form beautiful relationships. And that's what God wants for us. And if this is the way they were acting, just imagine what kind of relationships they had with each other. And how beautiful and solid they must have been, especially knowing what they were going to face and did face, before they were scattered. So when I think about, those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, we're praying for. We're praying that we offer those things for others. And maybe, a little take home action for all of us could be, if you have those kindred spirits in your life, thank God for them. And if you don't, pray that God will help bring that into your life, and that we'll be doing our part to create those and pursue those ourselves.
That's one of the things that I look forward to most in, a situation like PTP or focal point, one of those things. Almost, don't tell anybody, but almost more than the lessons is getting to be with people. And a phrase that you use a lot, your cheeks hurt at the end of the day because you've been smiling so much. And when it fills me up, which is so odd because I am introverted, and usually being around too many people is draining. But in a place like that, where I feel like I'm surrounded by kindred spirits, then that just fills my heart, and I feel like I'm full of joy, and it just feels like a little piece of heaven. So that's a good thing.
It is a very good thing. God is good.
Yes.
Do you have something good for you?
I do. I did think about it. It's a fun way to use old Christmas cards if you've kept them. And I kept a couple of years worth, and I didn't know what I'd do with them. But then I saw this thing on, I don't know, I saw a picture of it, of what to do with old wedding cards. And I thought I'll do that with my Christmas cards, and I haven't finished it yet. But if you're looking, you can see
Wow.
I cut them into hexagon shapes, and then I've glued them onto this big piece of poster board, and I'm going to cut it and frame it.
That's
So
beautiful.
what I saw with the wedding cards was, and I wish I'd done it with these, is to cut out some signatures so that you could look and see, you know, where the cards were from. But I just did the decorative part of the front, and I've done that. So I
That's a
will.
beautiful, beautiful idea.
Well, it's not finished, but I thought I would share. And if people have old Christmas cards, it's a good way to hang on to them without having to actually hang on to the whole card.
I did that with Gary's first birthday cards.
Fun.
Cut out little pieces from each of the cards and made a collage and framed it.
Mhm.
And I intended to do that with the other boys as well.
And then there was the
And
second
then,
child and the third child.
Alas, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So mine is it's a book. Not really the book itself, but the author. This is Rhonda Starnes, and the book I'm holding is called Abducted at Christmas. It's her latest, but the reason I'm sharing this because she's a Christian.
Huh.
She's a member of the church. She's one of the elders' wives at the congregation that Carl used to preach at before they moved to Kentucky.
Okay.
So it's Grant, Alabama, the Hebron congregation.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how old she is, but she's an elder's wife and just started getting published.
Wow. Good
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I really don't know how long. It hasn't been long at all, but this is already her third or fourth book. And it's being published by the Love Inspired series. You know, they do suspense and mysteries and things like that. So it's Love Inspired Suspense. But like her books are in Walmart and Barnes and Noble, and I just think it's really cool that she's just decided, you know, she says that she's always wanted to write and she just did it. And so now she's got her third or fourth book out.
Wow.
And it's doing really well. So just thought we'd give a little shout out. Rhonda Starnes is her name if you want to check out her books. And
panda bear laying in the middle of the yard by itself is a little creepy.
That was the child's teddy, like her little teddy bear. So
it's a mystery, or is it
suspense?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's clean, so that's great.
Right. Yes.
Good to know.
Inspirational romance is the subtitle. So I mean the category. So it's clean.
A romantic thing about being abducted at Christmas time. Maybe they're being abducted to go on a romantic getaway.
I don't think that's right, Carla.
Okay. Well, there's a hope.
Well, anything else you want to share before we sign off here?
I don't think so.
Okay. Good chat. I enjoyed it. Thank God for you and our friendship.
Me too.
All right. And until next time,
keep looking up.
all right, love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.